The massive alien ship drifted through space like a crystal palace made of metal and light. Inside its command center, Ambassador Zix4471 stood perfectly still, his forearms arranged in the traditional pose of diplomatic readiness. His blue skin shimmered under the soft lights as he studied the data screens showing the approaching human vessel. "The creatures call themselves humans," said Dr. QETH9922, the ship's chief scientist. Her voice made a clicking sound when she spoke. "They come from the third planet in a system they call Sol. Our scans show they use primitive fusion engines and basic metal hulls." ZYX4471 nodded slowly. In his 300 years of diplomatic service, he had made first contact with 47 different species. The process was always the same. Formal greetings, exchange of gifts, careful discussions about trade and peace treaties. It was a dance that every civilized species knew how to perform. "Have they responded to our greeting protocols?" he asked. "Yes. Ambassador, they sent a message 20 minutes ago." "It is unusual." The scientist touched a control panel, and a holographic image appeared in the air. A human male wearing a simple blue uniform looked out at them. He had brown hair and friendly eyes, and he was smiling in a way that showed his teeth. "Greetings, alien friends," the human said. "I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Endeavor. We come in peace, and we're really excited to meet you folks. We've got some technical problems with our ship, but nothing we can't handle. Looking forward to chatting with you soon." The message ended, and silence filled the command center. Zix4471 stared at the empty space where the hologram had been. In all his years of diplomatic service, he had never heard such a casual first contact message. "Did he just call us, folks?" asked Dr. QETH9922. "I believe he did," replied the ambassador. "And what did he mean by technical problems?" Before anyone could answer, another human voice came over the communication system. This one belonged to a female. "Hey, Jake, I think I figured out what's wrong with the warp core," the voice said. "It's not a big deal. Just need to reroute some power cables and maybe bang on a few things with a wrench. Hold my beer. I'll have this fixed in 10 minutes. The aliens looked at each other in confusion. Dr. QETH9922 quickly checked her translation software to make sure she had understood correctly. "Did she just say, 'Hold my beer'?" she asked. "The translation seems accurate," replied the ship's computer. "However, I cannot determine the significance of this beverage-related statement." Ambassador Zix4471 activated the communication system. "Human vessel Endeavor, this is Ambassador Zix4471 of the Galactic Council. We welcome you to this sector of space. Please state the nature of your technical difficulties. We can provide assistance if needed." Captain Morrison's face appeared on the screen again. "Thanks for the offer, Ambassador. That's really nice of you. But Lisa's already on it. She's our chief engineer, and there's nothing she can't fix. You should see what she did with our coffee maker last week." Through the background audio, they could hear the sound of metal being hammered and someone humming a tune. There were also several loud banging noises and what sounded like electrical sparking. "Is your engineer in danger?" asked ZYX4471, genuinely concerned. "Lisa? No, she's fine. This is just how she works. She says the machines respond better when you show them who's boss." More banging sounds echoed through the communication link, followed by a loud cheer. "Got it," came the female voice. "Jake, fire up the engines. I jury-rigged a bypass using some spare parts and duct tape. Should hold us for a few thousand light years." Dr. QETH9922 quickly ran diagnostics on the human ship. What she saw made her tentacles curl in disbelief. The humans had somehow repaired a critical warp core malfunction using materials that should not have been able to handle the energy requirements. According to her calculations, their repair should have failed immediately. How is their ship still functioning? She whispered. I don't know, admitted the ambassador. Captain Morrison was still talking. So anyway, Ambassador, we'd love to come aboard your ship and shake hands, or tentacles, or whatever you folks use for greeting. We brought some gifts from Earth, coffee, chocolate, and a few bottles of something we call bourbon. It's really good stuff. We would be honored to meet with you, replied ZYX4471, though he was beginning to feel uncertain about this encounter. Great. We'll dock in about an hour. Lisa wants to take a look at your engines too. She's curious about how you folks build your ships. Says she might have some ideas for improvements. The communication ended, leaving the aliens staring at each other in silence. Sir, said Dr. QETH9922, I recommend we prepare a full xenobiological analysis team. These humans appear to operate outside normal parameters. Agreed, said the ambassador. And Doctor, please make a note in your files about that phrase, hold my beer. It seems to be significant to their culture. Already done, sir, though I have no idea what it means. As the human ship approached, Ambassador ZYX4471 felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of diplomatic service. He was nervous. These humans seemed friendly enough, but there was something about their casual confidence that made him uneasy. He did not yet know that he was about to witness the first recorded instance of what would later become known throughout the galaxy as the most dangerous phrase in any language. Hold my beer. 3 months had passed since the humans made first contact with the Galactic Council. Ambassador ZYX4471 had filed his report about the strange creatures who fixed impossible problems with casual confidence. The report gathered dust in the Council archives while bureaucrats debated what to do with Earth's application for membership. The Galactic Mining Consortium decided to test human capabilities by inviting them to participate in the annual asteroid harvesting operation. The location was Sector 7, a dangerous field of spinning rocks that contained rare minerals worth billions of credits. For over 2 centuries, the galaxy's best mining crews had worked these asteroids with extreme caution. Commander Veltok of the Mining Guild stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human vessel approach. The Earth ship looked primitive compared to the sleek alien mining vessels that surrounded it. Its hull was scarred metal, and its engines left trails of fire instead of the clean energy signatures used by advanced civilizations. The humans have requested permission to begin operations, reported his second officer. Very well, said Veltok. Assign them Grid Section 12. It's relatively safe, and the mineral deposits are small. Let them practice on something that won't get them killed. Grid Section 12 was where new mining crews learned the basics. The asteroids moved slowly. The mineral veins were easy to locate, and the gravity fields were stable. Most species spent months learning to extract materials safely from this area. Danny Rodriguez sat in the pilot seat of the human mining ship Prospector, studying the asteroid field through his viewport. Next to him, his co-pilot Katie Sullivan checked their equipment readings and shook her head. Look at how slow these alien ships are moving, Katie said. They're barely crawling through the field. Yeah, I see that, Danny replied. They're treating those rocks like they're made of glass. I bet we could cover their whole sector in about 2 hours. Through the communication system, they heard the measured voice of an alien mining supervisor giving instructions to one of the crews. The process involved careful scanning, precise positioning, gentle extraction, and multiple safety checks. It would take the alien crew 6 hours to harvest one small asteroid. Danny watched an alien mining ship spend 20 minutes positioning itself next to a rock the size of a school bus. The ship extended mechanical arms that moved with surgical precision, carefully cutting into the asteroid's surface to extract a few pounds of rare metal. "Hold my beer," Danny said, handing his drink to Katie. "I'm going to show these folks how we do things on Earth." Katie took the beer and grinned. She had known Danny since flight school, and she recognized that look in his eyes. "What's your plan? See that cluster of asteroids over there? The big ones with the blue streaks? Those are loaded with premium minerals. I'm going to thread the needle and grab the whole bunch in one pass." The asteroid cluster Danny was pointing at lay in the most dangerous part of the field. The rocks spun in complex patterns. Their gravity fields created unpredictable eddies, and the space between them was barely wider than their ship. No mining crew had ever attempted to work that area. Danny fired up the engines and accelerated toward the cluster. The prospector shot forward like a missile, moving 10 times faster than any of the alien ships. Within seconds, emergency warnings filled the communication channels. "Human vessel, reduce speed immediately," commanded the mining supervisor. "You are approaching a restricted zone at unsafe velocity." "Thanks for the warning," Danny replied cheerfully. "But we've got this under control." The alien crews stopped their work to watch in horror as the human ship dove into the asteroid cluster. Danny spun the ship sideways, slipped between two massive rocks with inches to spare, and fired the mining charges in a rapid sequence that would have taken other crews hours to plan, instead of the careful, surgical extraction used by alien miners. Danny employed what could only be described as aggressive harvesting. He rammed the ship's reinforced nose into small asteroids, used the engines to blast chunks of rock apart, and deployed the mining arms like weapons to grab everything valuable within reach. "This is insane," whispered Commander Veltok, watching. The displays in disbelief. The human ship emerged from the asteroid cluster trailing clouds of rock dust and carrying more rare minerals than most crews collected in a week. Danny had somehow managed to extract materials from 12 different asteroids without damaging his ship or getting crushed by the spinning rocks. "Not bad for a warm-up," Katie said, checking their cargo hold readings. "Want to try the really dangerous section next?" "Absolutely," Danny replied. "Point me toward the biggest, nastiest cluster you can find." For the next 6 hours, the alien mining crews watched in stunned silence as the humans tore through the asteroid field like a force of nature. They used techniques that violated every safety protocol, took risks that should have been fatal, and treated the dangerous environment like a playground. When a massive asteroid threatened to crush their ship, Danny used it as a slingshot to reach a cluster of valuable rocks on the far side of the field. When their mining charges ran low, Katie jury-rigged the ship's waste disposal system to fire garbage at high velocity, using trash as improvised mining tools. By the end of the day, the human ship had harvested more rare minerals than all the alien crews combined. Their cargo hold was packed with enough valuable materials to fund a small space station. Commander Veltok stared at the final harvest reports, checking the numbers 3 times to make sure his computer had not malfunctioned. "How is this possible?" he asked his staff. "Unknown, sir," replied his science officer. "According to our analysis, the humans should have been killed at least 17 times during their operations. And yet they're not only alive, they're asking if we have any more dangerous asteroid fields they can work tomorrow." Veltok immediately sent a priority message to the Galactic Council's Strategic Assessment Division. His report included video recordings of the human mining operations and a new recommendation for their threat assessment files. "When a human says, 'Hold my beer,'" he wrote, "it indicates they are about to attempt something that defies all known safety protocols and common sense. Recommend elevated caution when working with this species." The report was filed under Potential Tactical Indicators and marked for immediate review by the Council's military advisors. None of them realized they were documenting the early stages of what would become the galaxy's most feared phrase. The distress signal came from the edge of the Keth system, where space itself seemed to bend and twist around a dying neutron star. Captain Amy Chun of the human exploration vessel Pioneer was drinking coffee in her quarters when the emergency alert sounded through the ship. "Captain to the bridge," announced her communications officer. "We're receiving a Priority 1 distress call." Amy hurried to the command center, where her crew was already analyzing the incoming signal. A message was weak and breaking up, but they could make out enough to understand the situation. "This is the freighter Starwind," came the desperate voice of an alien captain. "We have suffered critical system failures. Our engines are dead, and we're being pulled toward the neutron star. 200 civilians on board. Please, anyone who receives this message, we need immediate assistance." Dr. Ben Martinez, the ship's chief science officer, was already running calculations on his computer. His face was grim as he studied the numbers. "Captain, the Starwind is caught in the neutron star's gravity well," he said. "According to my readings, they have maybe 6 hours before they reach the point of no return." Amy looked at the star chart on the main screen. The neutron star was a monster, with gravity so intense that it warped space around it like a funnel. Ships that got too close were crushed into atoms. "What about the Galactic Council's rescue fleet?" she asked. "Already deployed to the other side of the sector," replied her communications officer. "They can't reach the Starwind in time. Are there any other ships in the area?" "Negative, Captain. We're the only vessel within range." Amy stared at the display showing the neutron star's gravitational field. The Starwind was deep inside the danger zone, in a place where no rescue ship was supposed to go. The gravity was so strong that it would tear apart any vessel that tried to approach. "Ben, what are our options?" she asked. Dr. Martinez shook his head. "Honestly, Captain, there aren't any. The gravitational forces are too intense. Our ship would be destroyed long before we could reach them. Standard rescue protocols classify this as an impossible situation. What about using our emergency boosters to make a quick run?" "The math doesn't work, Captain. Even at maximum speed, we'd need at least 4 hours to reach them and return to safe distance. The neutron star's gravity would crush our hull long before we got close enough to help." Amy walked to the front of the bridge and studied the tactical display. The Starwind appeared as a small red dot, slowly spiraling toward the neutron star. 200 innocent lives were about to be lost, and there was nothing anyone could do about it. "Captain," said her pilot, Lieutenant Jerry Walsh, "I've been looking at the sensor readings. The neutron star's rotation is creating some weird gravitational waves. They're like ripples in space." "What kind of ripples?" "Well, if we could time it right, we might be able to surf those waves. Use them to accelerate toward the Starwind and then ride them back out." Dr. Martinez immediately began checking the calculations. "That's completely insane, Jerry. The timing would have to be perfect down to the microsecond. One mistake and we'd be torn apart. But is it possible?" Amy asked. "Technically, yes. But the margin for error is so small that it's essentially zero. No pilot alive could pull off that kind of precision flying." Amy looked at Jerry, who was studying the gravitational wave patterns with intense concentration. She had seen that look before. It was the same expression he wore when he was about to attempt something that made his instructors at the academy turn pale. "Jerry, do you think you can do it?" she asked. "Maybe," he said. "But I'd need to modify our solar sails to use them as gravitational rudders. And we'd have to dump all non-essential mass to reduce our weight, and probably disable half our safety systems to get maximum engine power." "That sounds like a plan that could get us all killed," said Dr. Martinez. "True," Amy replied, "but it's the only plan that gives those people a chance." She handed her coffee cup to Dr. Martinez and walked over to the pilot station. "Hold my beer, Ben. We're going to show this neutron star what human determination looks like." The next hour was a blur of frantic activity. The crew stripped everything non-essential from the ship, including furniture, decorations, and even some of the wall panels. They reconfigured the solar sails to act as gravitational fins, jury-rigged the engines to run beyond their safety limits, and calculated a flight path that would have made seasoned pilots quit their jobs. "Are you sure about this, Captain?" asked Dr. Martinez as they prepared to enter the neutron star's gravity well. "Absolutely not," Amy replied. "But we're going to do it anyway." Jerry fired the engines, and the Pioneer shot forward like a bullet. Within minutes, they were riding the gravitational waves created by the spinning neutron star. The ship shook violently as space itself twisted around them. "Hull stress is approaching critical levels," reported the engineering officer. "How much farther?" Amy asked. 3 minutes to intercept," Jerry replied, his hands dancing over the controls as he fought to keep the ship stable. Through the viewport, they could see the Starwind ahead of them, a tiny speck against the blazing backdrop of the neutron star. The alien freighter was tumbling helplessly, its hull already beginning to stretch from the gravitational forces. "Prepare for aggressive docking," Amy ordered. "We're not going to have time for a gentle approach." The Pioneer slammed into the Starwind's docking bay with enough force to buckle both ships' hulls. Amy's crew worked frantically to evacuate the alien civilians, cramming them into every available space on their ship. 200 souls aboard, reported the evacuation team. "Leader, but Captain, we're way over our weight limit." "Then we'll just have to fly faster," Amy replied. The return journey was even more terrifying than the approach. The overloaded Pioneer struggled to ride the gravitational waves while carrying twice its normal capacity. Jerry pushed the ship beyond its limits, using the neutron star's own spin to slingshot them back to safety. When they finally reached safe distance, Dr. Martinez ran a full diagnostic on their ship. The results made him sit down hard in his chair. "Captain, according to my calculations, we should have been torn apart at least 6 different times during that rescue." "But we weren't," Amy said with a smile. "No, we weren't. And I have no idea how that's possible." The rescue made headlines across the galaxy. The Starwind survivors told everyone who would listen about the crazy humans who had defied death itself to save them. The Galactic Council's military advisors added another entry to their growing file on human behavior. The phrase "hold my beer" appears to indicate that humans are about to attempt something that violates known laws of physics, wrote the analyst. Recommend treating this phrase as a warning of impending reality-defying behavior. The report was classified as a tactical assessment and distributed to intelligence agencies across 17 different star systems. None of them realized they were documenting humanity's growing reputation as the galaxy's most dangerous species. The Vorthan Empire had conquered 47 star systems in the past century. Their war fleets were known throughout the galaxy for their overwhelming firepower and ruthless tactics. When they set their sights on human space, most alien observers expected the conquest to be swift and brutal. Admiral Krex Prime stood on the bridge of his flagship, studying the tactical displays showing Earth's outer colonies. The human settlements looked pathetically weak compared to the mighty Vorthan armada. Their ships were small, their weapons were primitive, and their defensive positions were poorly designed. "These humans will surrender within hours," he told his staff officers. "Their technology is centuries behind ours. This will be the easiest conquest in Imperial history." The first attack targeted Luna Station, a human mining colony built on Earth's moon. The Vorthan fleet approached with overwhelming force, expecting to destroy the station's defenses and force immediate surrender. Colonel Pete Williams commanded the station's defense force. He was a calm man in his 50s who had spent most of his career dealing with mining accidents and equipment failures. When the enemy fleet appeared on his sensors, he seemed almost bored. "Sir, we're detecting over 200 hostile vessels approaching," reported his communications officer. "They're demanding our immediate surrender." "How many ships do we have?" Pete asked. 12 patrol boats and 6 cargo haulers, sir, plus the station's defensive platforms." Pete looked at the tactical display showing the massive enemy fleet. By any reasonable calculation, Luna Station was doomed. The Vorthans had enough firepower to destroy the entire moon. "Sir, what are your orders?" asked Lieutenant Mary Johnson, his second in command. "Well, that's inconvenient," Pete said, scratching his chin. "Mary, hold my beer while I implement Plan Bravo." Mary took his coffee mug and watched as Pete activated the station's emergency protocols. Plan Bravo was something he had designed during a particularly boring night shift, more as a mental exercise than a serious military strategy. None of his superiors had ever approved it because it violated numerous safety regulations and common sense. "Are you sure about this, sir?" Mary asked. "Absolutely not," Pete replied. "But it's the only plan we've got." The first phase of Plan Bravo involved converting Luna Station's mass drivers into impromptu artillery. The mass drivers were normally used to launch cargo pods toward Earth, but Pete had calculated that they could also launch other things at much higher velocities. "Load all mining charges into the cargo pods," Pete ordered. "Set the timers for proximity detonation." "Sir, that's our entire supply of explosives," protested his engineering officer. "I know," Pete said. "We're going to need them." The second phase involved using the station's industrial fabricators to manufacture weapons that technically weren't weapons. Pete had his engineers build devices that were officially listed as mining equipment, but happened to fire high-velocity projectiles and emit destructive energy beams. When the Vorthan fleet moved within range, Pete activated the mass drivers. Hundreds of cargo pods shot out from Luna Station, each carrying enough explosives to destroy a small ship. The pods spread out in a wide pattern, creating a minefield between the station and the approaching fleet. Admiral Krex Prime watched in confusion as the human station launched what appeared to be garbage at his fleet. "Are they throwing their trash at us?" he asked his tactical officer. "Unknown, sir. The objects appear to be standard cargo containers." "Ignore them and continue." The attack. The first Vorthan ships entered the minefield just as the proximity timers activated. The explosions lit up space like a chain of stars, destroying a dozen warships and damaging many more. The Admiral stared in disbelief at the tactical display. "How did they turn cargo pods into weapons?" he demanded. "Unknown, sir." Intelligence. Reports indicated the humans had no military technology. Well, obviously intelligence was wrong. The third phase of Plan Bravo involved what Pete cheerfully called creative use of industrial equipment. The station's mining lasers were repurposed as anti-ship weapons. The ore processors were converted into projectile launchers, and the waste disposal system was modified to fire garbage at high velocity. The Vorthan fleet found itself under attack from weapons that shouldn't have existed. Mining lasers carved through their armor, trash fired at enormous speed, punched holes in their hulls, and jury-rigged devices that had been built from spare parts somehow managed to disable their advanced targeting systems. "Sir, we're taking heavy casualties," reported the fleet's damage control officer. "The humans are using weapons we've never seen before." "What kind of weapons?" Admiral Krex Prime asked. "Well, sir, one of our cruisers was just destroyed by what appears to be a modified coffee machine." The Admiral stared at his subordinate. "A coffee machine?" "Yes, sir. They somehow turned it into a particle beam weapon. Our shields were completely ineffective against it." The fourth phase of Plan Bravo was the most audacious. Pete had his engineers build ramming ships using empty cargo containers and emergency thruster pods. The improvised vessels were piloted by volunteers who flew them directly into the Vorthen formation, using the ships themselves as weapons. "They're using suicide attacks," reported the tactical officer. "No, sir," corrected the communications officer. "We're intercepting their transmissions. The pilots are ejecting just before impact and using emergency parachutes to land on nearby ships." Admiral Krex Prime watched in growing horror as his mighty fleet was torn apart by an enemy that seemed to treat warfare as a creative exercise. The humans were using tactics that made no sense, weapons that shouldn't work, and strategies that violated every principle of military science. "Sir, we've lost over 60 ships," reported his second-in-command. "The humans are now launching what appears to be kitchen appliances at us." "Kitchen appliances?" "Yes, sir. Microwaves, blenders, and something called a food processor. They've been modified to emit electromagnetic pulses that are disrupting our navigation systems." The final phase of Plan Bravo involved Pete's masterstroke. He had noticed that the Vorthen ships were vulnerable to a specific type of energy frequency. Using the station's communication array, he broadcast a signal that caused the enemy ship's computer systems to malfunction. "What's happening to our computers?" Admiral Krex Prime asked as his displays began showing random data. "Unknown, sir. The humans appear to be attacking us with music." "Music?" "Yes, sir. They're broadcasting something called classic rock at a frequency that's causing our systems to crash." Within 12 hours of the attack beginning, the Vorthen fleet was in full retreat. Admiral Krex Prime had lost over half his ships to an enemy that had turned a mining station into a fortress, using nothing but spare parts and creative thinking. "How did they do this?" he asked his staff as they fled toward friendly space. "Unknown, sir. Our analysis suggests they treated the entire battle as an engineering problem rather than a military engagement." The defeat sent shockwaves through the Vorthen Empire and beyond. News of the battle spread quickly through galactic communication networks. The humans had not only survived an attack by the galaxy's most feared military force, they had won decisively using improvised weapons and impossible tactics. The Galactic Council's military analysts updated their files on human behavior. The phrase "hold my beer" was now officially classified as a maximum threat indicator. Intelligence agencies across 17 star systems began tracking human activities with unprecedented attention. Several alien species quietly began negotiating non-aggression pacts with Earth. The Vorthen Empire, meanwhile, decided that conquering humans was more trouble than it was worth. None of them realized that they had just witnessed the birth of humanity's reputation as the galaxy's most dangerous species. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on the neutral world of Centauri Prime, in a chamber that had hosted diplomatic meetings for over 1,000 years. Representatives from 43 different species sat in their assigned seats, but their attention was focused on one empty chair marked with the symbol of Earth. Ambassador ZYX4471 stood at the center of the chamber, holding a data tablet that contained the most comprehensive xenobiological study ever conducted. His forearms trembled slightly as he prepared to address the assembly. "Fellow beings," he began, "we are here to discuss what our analysts have designated as the human problem." A murmur ran through the chamber. The Centaurian delegate raised one of his tentacles to speak. "Ambassador Zix 4471, surely you exaggerate. One species cannot pose a threat to the entire galactic community." "I wish that were true," ZYX4471 replied. "But the evidence suggests otherwise. In the past year, we have documented 847 separate incidents involving humans and the phrase, 'hold my beer.' Each incident has resulted in outcomes that our best scientists cannot explain." He activated the chamber's holographic display, showing a timeline of human activities since first contact. The data was overwhelming. The pattern is clear, he continued. When a human says, "Hold my beer," they are about to attempt something that defies known laws of physics, military strategy, or common sense. More importantly, they usually succeed. Dr. QETH9922 stood up from her seat in the Scientific Observer section. The phrase appears to trigger a psychological state in humans that makes them temporarily immune to rational thought. In this state, they treat impossibility as a personal challenge. "What kind of impossibility?" asked the Andromedan representative. "All kinds," Dr. QETH9922 replied. They have used the phrase before repairing critical systems with garbage, mining asteroids using techniques that should have killed them, rescuing ships from neutron stars, and defeating military forces with kitchen appliances. The chamber fell silent as the delegates absorbed this information. The Vorthan military attaché, Admiral Krex Prime, looked particularly uncomfortable. "The humans defeated our entire battle fleet," he admitted. "They turned a mining station into a fortress using spare parts and creative thinking. Our computer systems were destroyed by their music." "Their music?" asked the Centaurian delegate. "Something called classic rock. It apparently operates on frequencies that our technology cannot handle." Ambassador Zix4471 consulted his tablet. "That brings us to the core issue. Humans do not think like the rest of us. When faced with an impossible situation, most species accept defeat or seek help. Humans see it as an opportunity to prove something." "Prove what?" asked the Andromedan. "That they are more stubborn than the universe itself." The chamber erupted in discussion as delegates shared their own experiences with humans. The Crystalline Collective reported that human engineers had improved their ancient technology using materials found in a garbage dump. The Aquatic Federation told of human pilots who had navigated their most dangerous ocean currents while eating something called pizza. "The situation is becoming untenable," declared the representative from the Merchant Guild. "Our insurance companies refuse to cover any equipment used in human proximity. Several of our most experienced crews have requested transfers to avoid working with them. Our military advisors have reached similar conclusions," added the Security Council's chairman. "Standard tactical assessments are useless when applied to human behavior. They treat warfare as a creative exercise rather than a strategic discipline." Ambassador Zix4471 raised his hands for silence. "This brings us to the reason for today's session. We must decide how to classify humanity within the galactic community." The chamber's main display showed a list of species classifications that had been used for centuries. Peaceful, aggressive, neutral, expansionist, and dozens of other categories that help define each species' role in galactic society. "None of these classifications fit humans," said Dr. QETH9922. "They are not aggressive in the traditional sense, but they are undeniably dangerous. They seek peaceful relations, but their very presence makes other species nervous." "What do you recommend?" asked the Centaurian delegate. "We propose creating a new classification," Ambassador ZYX4471 announced. "Galactic Wild Card Species." The chamber fell silent again. In over 1,000 years of galactic civilization, no species had ever been given such a designation. "The classification would serve as a warning to all member species," he continued. "When humans are involved in any project, standard safety protocols must be suspended and emergency procedures must be activated. All personnel should be prepared for outcomes that violate known laws of physics." "What about the phrase, 'hold my beer'?" asked the Andromedan representative. "We recommend that it be classified as a maximum threat indicator," replied Dr. QETH9922. "When a human says these words, All nearby species should immediately evacuate to a safe distance and activate emergency shields. The vote was unanimous. Every species in the chamber agreed that humanity should be classified as a galactic wildcard species. The phrase "hold my beer" was officially designated as a maximum threat indicator, with automatic emergency protocols activated across 7 star sectors. The news spread quickly through galactic communication networks. Within hours, insurance companies updated their policies, military organizations revised their threat assessments, and civilian populations began stockpiling emergency supplies in case humans moved into their neighborhoods. Back on Earth, Captain Jake Morrison sat in his office reading the Galactic Council's official notification. The document was formal and diplomatic, but its message was clear. Humanity had been classified as too dangerous for normal interaction. "Sir, what's our response?" asked his aide, Lieutenant Carol Price. Jake handed her the official document and reached for his coffee mug. "Hold my beer, Carol. I'm going to show these aliens what happens when you tell humans they're too dangerous." Carol took the coffee mug with a knowing smile. She had worked with Jake long enough to recognize that expression. It was the same look he had worn before suggesting they fix the first warp core with duct tape. "What did you have in mind, sir?" she asked. "Well, they think we're dangerous when we do normal things," Jake said, pulling up star charts on his computer. "So let's give them something really impressive to worry about." He pointed to a region of space that most species avoided. "See that black hole in the Omega sector? The one with the unstable event horizon that keeps swallowing stars?" "Yes, sir." "It's been classified as a no-fly zone for the past 300 years. "Perfect. I'm thinking we should terraform it." Carol nearly dropped the coffee mug. "Sir, you can't terraform a black hole. It's physically impossible." "That's what they said about fixing warp cores with garbage," Jake replied cheerfully. And look how that turned out. Within an hour, Jake had assembled a team of Earth's most creative engineers and pilots. The project was officially designated as Advanced Stellar Engineering Research, but everyone involved knew they were attempting something that violated several fundamental laws of physics. The plan was ambitious, even by human standards. They would use a combination of controlled matter injection, gravitational manipulation, and what Jake described as aggressive physics to turn the black hole's event horizon into a stable platform for human habitation. "The math doesn't work," protested Dr. Helen Foster, Earth's leading astrophysicist. "You can't build a city on the edge of a black hole." "The math didn't work for the neutron star rescue either," Jake pointed out. "But Amy pulled it off anyway. That was different." "This is actually impossible." "Says who?" Dr. Foster stared at him for a moment, then sighed in defeat. "I'll start working on the calculations." News of the project leaked within days, spreading through galactic communication networks like wildfire. The reaction was immediate and predictable. Panic spread through civilized space as alien species contemplated the implications of humans successfully terraforming a black hole. Sessions were called in governments across 43 star systems. The Galactic Council upgraded humanity's threat classification from galactic wildcard species to reality distortion entity. Several alien civilizations began developing evacuation plans in case the human experiment destroyed local spacetime. "They're going to terraform a black hole," Ambassador Zix4471 reported to the emergency assembly. "Our scientists say it's impossible, but human scientists said the same thing, and they're doing it anyway." The Centaurian delegate was practically hyperventilating. What if they succeed? What if they actually build a city on the event horizon of a black hole? "Then the universe will have to revise its rule book," replied Dr. QETH 9922 grimly. Back in the Omega sector, the human fleet was already hard at work. Captain Danny Rodriguez was using his mining ship to inject carefully calculated amounts of exotic matter into the black hole, while Captain Amy Chun's exploration vessel deployed gravitational field generators that shouldn't have been able to function in such extreme conditions. "How's it looking, Danny?" Jake asked over the communication system. "Well, we've got the event horizon stabilized," Danny replied. "And Amy's managed to create some kind of artificial gravity field that's keeping space-time from collapsing. I have no idea how any of this is working, but it's working."